Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to this celebration of life for a dear friend, loving family member, Richard Phend. Apologize to you that had to park out on the street, but I'm glad that you're here. Is there any empty seats around? There's a couple there, there's two there, a couple there. Okay, we can direct them if somebody comes in. Okay, so I'm Nat Carter. I'm the minister here, one of the spiritual leaders. The services are going to be conducted today by what we call in Unity our licensed teachers. They're licensed spiritual leaders. So Angela Barbati is going to be conducting the majority of the service, and Donna Van Houston is going to be participating as well. Welcome, Angela.
Thanks, Nat. Richard and I met probably 25 or 30 years ago here at the church. And about 20 years ago, we served on the board together, and he was very dear friends with the minister at that time, who we decided we could no longer afford to pay. So he was part of the group that had to decide together that we couldn't pay Reverend Sandra when she was his dear friend. And so that gave me insight into Richard's character and his kindness. If anyone here wishes to make a memorial donation, Richard asked that you consider the local food bank. Any charitable organization would work fine. His favorite was the food bank. So everybody's here to honor Richard, and by association, Marthine. Let's all take a great big deep breath and let it out in a moan. Oh. Once again. Oh. Life is not always easy. And sometimes, for crying out loud, you just gotta let it out. I am awed and humbled to have been invited to honor Richard. And it's a challenge to acknowledge a life that is so rich and so full and so long, also so generously lived. Richard was beloved by many, not only his extended family, his blended families. He was a friend to all. Here are some highlights that the family shared, and there's going to be lots of time for anyone who wishes to stand up and take 3 to 4 minutes and tell a story. So Richard's parents, Henrietta Pauline Nelson and Donald Dwight Phend, raised their family in Columbia City, Indiana. That's where Richard grew up. And he considered his family, his sisters and brother, to be a really influential contribution to his life. He thought that they were in great part responsible for the richness and success of his life. So today we're going to hear about how he passed the legacy on to people that he loved. In 1951, he graduated Columbia City High School and he enrolled at Ball State, and then he withdrew and joined the United States Navy during the Korean conflict. And he was proud of serving as a cook on a Navy ship. He would tell me stories about the guys that he served with. When he was on leave, he met the love of his life, Marthine Ann Gift. They were married in San Diego. When they returned to Indiana, Richard resumed studies using the GI Bill, and he graduated in 1959 with a Bachelor of Arts in Education. He took a teaching and coaching position in Solon, and he moved his growing family there to Chagrin Falls, a place that they came to call home. Richard was really active in his professional career and in the community. And he served in many different leadership roles over the years. There's an extra chair up here. He was co-founder and first president of the United Teachers Association in Solon. He was a founding member of the Chagrin Athletic Association. He was active in sports. He taught and coached gymnastics all over the area. And he was our youth and education director here for years. He taught my daughter, Lizzie. There's a complication to living a long and fruitful life, isn't there? The people that we love die. The family who preceded Richard include his grandparents, his mother, his father, his sister, Patsy, his brother Donald, his sister Judy, and I'm sure there were many, many others. Nobody gets to be our age without losing folks. He served our church community for decades, and he was well known for handing out business cards with positive affirmations. There are a stack of them on the back table. I encourage you to grab one. What it says is this. This really expresses who Richard was in a very short sentence. Thank you for being who you are and doing what you do. He didn't measure what you were doing. He didn't find it lacking. Richard just said, thank you. Who you are is wonderful, and what you do is important. Jane, do you want to talk about the back of the card?
Wow, yeah, the mic is active. Okay. So I had a nickname when I was a little girl, and it was Keomis. And on the back of the card, you'll see Keomis. And it was my dad's way of telling me, keep your eyes on me, I'm special. It's the acronym. And I spent hours trying to decide what I would say today. And she asked me to talk about the Keomis, and one of the things that I asked my dad, because you know his faith was so important, and he lived his faith. And I said, Dad, you're gonna let me know what's on the other side, right? And how am I gonna know if you're here? He said, Keomis. I haven't seen that card in a while, and she asked me about it when we got here, so I know that was a sign. There's going to be lots of other people saying lots of things that I want to say, but I'm just going to tell you some of the things that are most impactful. I went to Japan, and they asked me, what is something your father told you as a girl that made the most impact? And I said, he said, we're rich because we have love. No matter how much is in your pocket, you'll always be wealthy if you lead with love. And that's something that I've tried to live by, and he definitely did. I asked people from different eras of his being of service, right? He was of service, definitely of service. And there's generations of people that had come in contact with him in different ways. They all said that he was kind, he listened, and he was a safe space. So what a legacy. If you can be kind and listen and be a safe space, you can impact the world. And one last thing. My last conversation with my dad, you never know, you think about what is that conversation gonna look like, or what is it gonna be. I said to him, Dad, I'm proud to be your daughter. And he said, I'm proud that you're my daughter. And he said, I knew I was gonna love you when you and Patty Kravitz dressed up like Browns on Halloween. And you had to run out and roll in the dirt so that you had grass stains, so it looked like you had actually played. But that's who my dad was, right? He made you feel good. He left every space better, and he filled up the room. So.
Thanks, Jane. Anybody else feel moved? Julie?
So, fairy tales typically begin with once upon a time in a land far away, but this one began in Columbia City, Indiana. My father came home from the Navy on leave, and he met my mother at a Christmas party. While developing their long-distance relationship, they wrote letters, sent cards with photos included, and on the back was written forever, ever, and ever. So that was their ritual. When they kissed, they would look into each other's eyes, and they would kiss forever, forever, ever. When I was a little girl, I thought, didn't everybody kiss like this? I thought that's what you did. A year or so ago, my mom and I were on the phone together, and I could hear my dad in the background. He was getting ready to run an errand. She said, hold on. And down goes kisses my mom, and I could hear it. Ever, forever, ever, and ever. And she giggled, and she says, he would have stood there until we were off the phone. So she was shooing him on his errand. Even in the past few months, the final days of my dad's life, you could hear them mooching forever and ever and ever. They did it in the rehab center. They did it in the hospital. So, I have read recently about a 6-second kiss. It fosters connection, builds trust. It's a simple yet powerful way to nurture emotional bonding. You can look it up, it's real. It takes about 6 seconds to do the forever, ever, and ever. I timed it. So if they did it twice a day, right? But if he ran more errands, of course, he never left the house without saying this. Well, let's just say twice a day, times 72 years. That's about 315,360 seconds in their lifetime of kissing forever, ever, and ever. I think they were onto something. They were married 69 years. But that's not all. They had another ritual, within the past decade anyway. This was a squeeze. They were at a wedding, and they pushed down a pew, and they were separated by a vent of some sort. My father reached over, grabbed my mother's hand, and he mouthed, "I love you," while he squeezed. "I love you."
Remember that.
This became a thing too. Fast forward, sitting in their matching recliners with a coffee table separating them. My father's health was declining. He would reach over, my mother would take his hand, and they would each squeeze 3 times. And no words were needed because they knew what that meant. In my father's final hours, my mother held his hand all day. And after a full day, she looks over and said, "He's squeezing my hand." I said, "Squeeze back 3 times. You did. If everyone could be loved like my father loved my mother, they would be a part of a very elite club. The fairy tale does not stop with the end. It continues with all of us, with 3 squeezes and a forever, ever, and ever. My dad's greatest wish is that for you to love one another. It simply takes 6 seconds. I love you, Mom. I miss you, Dad. And thank you all for being here today.
Thank you.
You should be doing this, not me. Okay. Richard's fondest wish in death was that you love one another. Can we follow Richard's example? Let's be a little bit kinder. If we were lucky to be gifted with a big piece of life's pie, share some around. Let's behave more charitably towards those we think poorly of. When folks we love struggle or make bad choices, let's judge less and listen more. They're an expression of God doing their own little God dance in their own little God body. God is always being God, everywhere, equally present. God is there in the good and in the bad. Our form is not who we are. God is always being God, always taking form, and always leaving form. When Richard made his transition, Martine was there. 69 years did not dim their love. He would always leave the services as soon as they were over. He'd bring some food for Martine because we usually had potlucks. But he would tell us, "I have to get home to my young bride." Richard's survived by his sister Sally and 3 kids, Richard, Julia, and Jane. There are also 4 grandchildren, Catherine, Richard, Michael, and Leanne, and there's 4 great-grands, Leela, Nova, Jean, and Clay. It's a lot of love to go around, a lot of kisses. It was Sherwin Newland who said, "The greatest dignity to be found in death is the dignity of the life that preceded it. This is a form of hope that we can all achieve and it is the most abiding of all. Hope resides in the meaning of what our lives have been. Each and every person here is writing your own obituary day by day. What do you want it to say? Start now. We have another slot of time for anybody who wants to speak. Yes, come on up.
My grandparents, being the spiritual seekers that they are, they always collected inspirational stories, poems, and sentiments. I had the pleasure of helping my grandfather put together a book about his life. And that meant that I took his little binder home with me to put it all together. And in that book, I found a poem that he kept as an inspiration. And to me, it really summed up the way that he lived. So this poem is by Maya Angelou, and it's called I've Learned. Let's see if I can get through it. I've learned that no matter what happens or how bad it seems today, life does go on, and it will be better tomorrow. I've learned that you can tell a lot about a person by the way he or she handles these three things: a rainy day, lost luggage, and tangled Christmas tree lights. I've learned that regardless of your relationship with your parents, you'll miss them when they're gone from your life. I've learned that making a living is not the same thing as making a life. I've learned that life sometimes gives you a second chance. I've learned that you shouldn't go through life with a catcher's mitt on both hands. You need to be able to throw something back. I've learned that whenever I decide something with an open heart, I usually make the right decision. I've learned that even when I have pains, I do not have to be one. I think he told me that. I've learned that every day you should reach out and touch someone. People love a warm hug or just a friendly pat on the back. I've learned that I still have a lot to learn. I've learned that people will forget what you said. People will never forget how you made them feel. And as some of you may have heard, my grandpa met Maya Angelou one morning at the Ambassador Hotel in Chicago. He said, "Good morning, Miss Angelou," to which she replied, "Good morning, young man." He may have been in his 70s at the time. My grandpa was proud of his many accomplishments. He was an avid pole vaulter and basketball player in his youth. He served his country in the Korean War. He graduated from college twice. He taught and coached hundreds of students. He created the CAA, served on the board of the Columbia City Alumni Board as president. He offered inspiration to his church and served many years as president of Nob Hill. But like Maya Angelou said in her poem, perhaps my grandpa's greatest impact was not what he did, but how he made us feel. My grandpa was charismatic, charming, full of life, and overall a good-natured human. He struck up conversations everywhere, in the checkout lines, with waitresses, with strangers. He treated everyone with warmth and dignity. Richard Phend was a friend to all. He reminded people that they were valued and loved, as we saw at the card. And most of all, he was a loving, endlessly devoted husband. to my grandmother Martine. They shared a love so deeply romantic, fun, and caring that it was almost unreal. I feel so proud that I am a byproduct of your love. My grandpa pursued his interests. He visited dozens of presidential and historical sites, and as a true Gemini, he was an avid reader, a student for life, and a wealth of knowledge. He was the kind of person you wanted to get stuck talking to at a party. He lived by a moral code of kindness and generosity, making frequent trips to the food bank until he could no longer drive. And he elevated all the spaces he was in with his warm and engaging presence. Richard, my grandpa, he always made people smile, whether he was surprising us dressed as a giant bunny on Easter or giving out giant candy bars to kids in the neighborhood on Halloween. I remember seeing kids run down your porch. Oh my God, they have the big candy bars. When meeting someone new, he always responded to an offered hand with, "I'm a hugger, do you hug?" My grandpa always aimed to elevate people. He always offered his wisdom, and while he kept busy, he was never too busy to show up for the people he loved. He was generous, and though he lived humbly, he frequently donated to causes which he felt would make the world a better place. I always felt inspired chatting with him about spirituality, history, and reincarnation. My favorite is that he insisted that because we live in the Aquarian age, the age of air, that we should be baptized with feathers now. So he baptized my daughter Leela with a feather. Yes, my grandpa was a spiritual being and in many ways ahead of his time. I would always call him to see how he was doing, and he would say, "I'm good, I only have good days," which made it especially hard to see him struggle these past few months. In his final days, I reminded him of something he would always say during our spiritual talks, which was, "I am a child of God and I never left heaven." I always felt love in my grandparents' home. I always felt embraced and understood, no matter what I was facing. Their door was always open to me. My grandpa and grandma always offered encouragement, endless support, and unconditional love. They always supported my interests, and I always knew that they were proud of me. I know that I survived some of my darkest moments because deep down, I knew I was loved. In our final months together, I had a chance to thank my grandpa and my grandma for all they've shown me. In our final conversation, my grandpa told me that he always tried to be the best grandpa he could be. I affirmed to him that there was no question that he was, because of how I felt, unconditionally loved. Yet, in the following weeks, poring over thousands of photographs confirmed this. There he was at every birthday party, playing in the playhouse with me, laughing with me, dripping in grandchildren on the porch swing, singing to us, teaching and reading to us, just being there, a loving presence. I will miss his chuckle, his voice, his philosophical deep dives, his stories about how he and my grandma fell in love, how invested he was in the basketball game, witnessing how much he loved my grandma, and most of all, hearing him call me Honey Bunny on the phone. I know he touched all of your lives too. May Richard's love and kindness continue to live through all of us. May his memory continue to be a blessing as one who lived and loved to the fullest forever and ever.
You can guys really didn't need me. In the Poisonwood Bible, Barbara Kingsolver wrote, "To live is to be marked. To live is to change, to acquire the words of a story. That is the only celebration we mortals really know. To live is to be marked." There's a wonderful song that I referred to very briefly when we started, and I encouraged you to give a low moan. The name of the song is "Oh for Crying Out Loud." Barbara McAfee performs it. I encourage each person here to Google the song and look it up, and when you feel like crying, put it on your playlist and have at it. There's a quote from Ram Dass that has stuck with me about death. I've been honored and blessed to do about 15 of these life celebration ceremonies, and to me it's really holy, holy work to be honored in this way. So this is what Ram Dass said. Death is 100% safe. It's like taking off a tight shoe that you have worn well. I'd like to ask Donna Van Oosten to come up and guide us in a silent meditation.
Well, the nice thing about Richard is that his family knew him well. Martine and I met each other in the 80s, so loved her always. Loved Richard, and my husband John and I felt like we were following in their footsteps of spending life together. So now we're going to have a meditation, so I'm going to ask you all just to take a moment and pull the energy through the very top of your head and down into your heart. And if you're comfortable, you can close your eyes or you can leave them open. By the way, Richard graded me every time I was up here. I mean, he'd run to the podium. I think I passed, I don't know. So we'll go forward now, Richard. Holy Spirit, we acknowledge your presence with us. Your Spirit blessing us with your love and strength as we let go of the physical presence of one who is dearly loved. It is through experiencing our oneness with you that we recognize our oneness in eternal life and know that in spirit there can be no separation from those we love. And in this truth we find comfort that Richard is but a prayer away. We as Spirit, we feel your light and love moving through each one of us as we join in community to celebrate Richard's life. And a poem for Martine and the family. You are with me, Richard, in every cell of my body. You are with me in my thoughts. You are with me in my prayers. You are with me in the silence. You are with me, Richard, as you lay your physical being down and raise your spirit on high. as I let go of you to higher thought. You are with me, Richard, in radiant light and love.
Leavings are far more difficult for those left behind. And we often associate who we are with our body, don't we? Our body appears to wear out, appears to be damaged, appears to leave. We have bodies, but we are so much more than bodies. When we look in a mirror, the face looking back is our face, but it's not us with a capital U. Meister Eckhart said, "We are that which is doing the looking. We are that which is doing the looking." And the I of who we are, our spiritual essence, is deeper and inexplicable. We think we understand it. And our understanding, in my experience, is usually somewhat limited in one way or another. This quote is from Douglas Bortorff. Our body is the vehicle of our soul. Our body is the vehicle of our soul, our physical interface with the material world, and yet we think of it as much more than this, and we give it a lot more importance. Emily Dickinson believed that the soul should always stand ajar, ready to welcome the ecstatic experience. And when I think of Richard, I think that's really the way he went through life. He was so filled with joy about everything, so curious, so fascinated. He saw things and he would say, I think that's what it is, but I could be wrong. And we can be wrong, can't we? By the way, I want to call attention to the beautiful ties that everyone is wearing today. And when you see one that you particularly like, go and ask them what it means. Do we have a prize for the nicest tie? No, sorry. Okay. I'd like to invite anyone else to come up and share a memory. Come on up, Jan.
I met Richard at our church, and I've known him for about 20-some years. And what always impressed me was his hugs, because they were long, they were lengthy, and he always said thank you to me after hugging him, which was really kind of an exchange of spirit. And in our church, some of us believe in a divine masculine energy and a divine feminine energy that combine in everyone, no matter what your gender. And when he created the red business cards, I always loved giving them to strangers wherever I was, and usually it was clerks or cashiers. It always felt so rewarding, but it just confused me, the back of it, you know. And I asked Richard one day, I said, would you mind if I create my own card based on yours, but it's just gonna be a little bit different? And he was real supportive. Oh yeah, go for it. So the blue cards you see back there are my version of like a divine feminine of Richard's divine masculine, because I truly believe he was an expression of divine masculine galore. So in my card, what I put on the back was very basic. Kindness makes the world a better place. And, you know, I enjoy giving it out to people. And for Thanksgiving, this past Thanksgiving, I was in Kentucky. And I was with 3 of my 4 siblings. And we were we chose to have coffee at McDonald's as the 3 sisters, only because we hadn't had coffee lately and it's a better brew than it used to be. And we already had our Thanksgiving meal, but it's on Thanksgiving. So we're there talking. And I notice a man sitting alone in a booth eating McDonald's food on Thanksgiving, and he was elderly. He's just this elderly man by himself, and his cane was on the table of the booth. And my intuition was like shouting at me, we're getting ready to go, and intuition is saying, talk to him, go talk to him. So I had my cards with me. You know, I put a card in my hand, the blue card, and I sat across from him, and I just introduced myself, and I said, I want to give you something from my church. And I didn't know who he was, so I just passed it along, and he looked at it, and when he read the back of it, you know, he nodded his head. And then he started saying, I'm a veteran. And I had wanted to meet a veteran the previous week because I signed thank you cards and what I like about you, but my friends were giving it away in person when I was in Kentucky. So I'm talking to him, and he said, oh, I'm a veteran. And whether or not this is true, it impacted me. He said, I'm 101 years old. He walked in with a cane and drove himself. And he said, next week or two, I'm going to be 102. And I just kind of got up because it was not expected, even if it's an exaggeration. I said, boy, you're in good shape. You know, I really, really appreciate you. You are an inspiration. And when I gave him a hug while he was sitting there and I was standing up and he walked away. I'm going to thank Richard for this moment because I do think his spirit is around us so often. And he was a veteran, this guy's a veteran. I got what I wanted. Did I manifest it? Maybe, maybe not. But I listened to my intuition. And I think I learned all those lessons from Richard. I just wanted to share that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else? We have a mic in the back if you'd rather.
I thought I might say something.
Come on up.
I'm Dick Gift, I'm Marthine's brother. And I didn't know Dick better than anybody in this room, but except for Marthine, I think I knew him longer than anybody here. And I knew Dick as a young man. And pardon me for calling him Dick, I know he preferred Richard, but for 40 years it was Dick for me. And that's pardon me, but that's who he is for me. We're half brother and sister, and so when I was very young, 6, 7, and 8, they still lived in Indiana. And they would come, and my father wanted to stay close to Marthine and Myrna, so they would come and visit, and we had these wonderful visits. But then when I was 8 or 9, I moved to Chagrin, and we just spent many, many hours together, our families together. And had some wonderful memories. Marthine and my mother became very close and spent countless hours talking to each other. One thing, we mentioned he was an educator. I mean, do you all know that he was a pioneer and a renowned educator?
Tell us.
He developed the entire teaching model of 2 teachers in a classroom, breaking them up into groups where they could better satisfy the individual needs of each student. He was the first in the country to do it, and this today is still the working model that's at least common, if not standard, across the country. He was a great athlete. And when I was very young, he would come on these visits in the summer in our yard to impress me. He would do cartwheels into back kips into back flips in the yard, on this uneven yard. And I would just say, again. And of course, he carried that into the rest of his life with his coaching. He was a pioneer in women's gymnastics. He took it from a nothing into a major movement in Chagrin Falls, and he was renowned in that category as well. The main thing I remember about Dick is his incredible, voracious curiosity and intellectual pioneerism. I mean, he never thought in lockstep. Any situation, any person, any event, when we'd be talking about it, he would come up from a totally different angle. And it involved a lot of interesting discussions, you know. You know, he wasn't always mellow and serene. And one thing I remember, Jane, I don't know if you know, was one of the best basketball players in the state history of Ohio. And I attended a lot of those games. But my goodness, Dick during those games. He was a nervous wreck. He couldn't be around anybody. He had to walk down by the, and he gave those referees hell. All game long. But he just had always a fresh outlook on everything. And he was just a wonderful guy. Just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, who's next?
I'll say something.
There you go, Dan.
How lucky were all of you. Could never really get enough of Richard. I met him here at this church, and I came here, I believe it was around 1997 or 1998, and I was like a lot of people that come to Unity, they come out of some sort of transition, and I was going through a divorce, and I had a little boy, and I was a little bit lost, and when I came here, I had a different version of what being a man was, which was you hold your feelings in, you don't talk, you don't cry, you put on a tough exterior. And through this church and through Ted and Richard, I got to witness, I grew up without a dad, so I got to witness that beautiful confidence and masculine energy, but that a man who wasn't afraid to cry or wasn't afraid to show his softer side. And at 61, I feel like people like Richard are irreplaceable. It's such a great loss because they ground us, right? But I know his energy is here and it's strong, and it was an incredible gift to know him and his curiosity. And even though I moved away from the church, whenever I would come back, he was always very curious to know what was happening with me and what I was doing, and or asked me about real estate, and he's taught me a lot about how to be a man in his own quiet confidence way. And with the years I spent at that church, I always really admired that, and I feel like I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I learned an incredible amount of things from my grandfather, both practical and spiritual. But one of the largest things that he taught me wasn't something that he ever had to say. It was a perspective that I gained from seeing how he lived his life. And as much as today is a moment of reflection, I also think there's value in looking forward. Because the world can appear to be a cold, cruel, and indifferent place. But there are certain people, like my grandfather, of exceptional warmth, love, and compassion that shine like a brilliant beacon through the fog, gently guiding us towards greater possibilities. Though we may be saddened by his absence, it's important to always be grateful for the glorious gift that was his presence. Though he may have left to experience the well-deserved rewards beyond our imagination or understanding, what's still here with us is the love he bore into this world, both in our memories and our hearts. And it is constantly manifesting itself through the lives of everybody who knew him. It's the greatest mark of a man to be able to say that you left the world a better place than you found it. And that is absolutely true of my grandfather.
Thank you, Rich.
We're getting closer to noon, and I know people are maybe getting a little bit hungry. So, but I want to give anyone who'd like to speak a chance to stand up and share your thoughts. Is there anyone else? And tell us your name.
My name is Chip Warren. This is kind of, is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Richard started CAA, Chagrin Athletic Association, and wintertime, he took a carload of us kids up to East Lake North. It's dark, it's winter, hard to see. After our match, we were all hungry. We're going down a 4-lane highway, or not really a highway, but a 4-lane road. Hey, there's McDonald's. We're all hungry. Richard slams on his brakes, pulls a U-ey, tries to go over to McDonald's. There was a cement divider that we didn't see. His car got stuck on the divider. And it was a fast road. The 4 of us got out of the car. We each grabbed a corner, lifted it up, and he's yelling at us, no, put it on the other side, towards McDonald's. So we did, and we made it to McDonald's. And we made it home.
That's a good story. Great story. Well, yeah.
Okay.
And he was laughing. I mean,
Yeah.
Each of us is setting an example, step by step, thought by thought, word by word. You have an influence in the world. And are you going to use it for good, like Richard did? We get to choose. Everybody gets to choose the kind of life that we want to build from the raw material that we got. The point of this service for me was to remind all of us that Richard's true identity continues on. He has only dropped his physical interface. And certainly we can mourn the loss of the physical connection. There's nothing like Richard's hugs. We miss this ability to connect with someone that we love. Yet we remind ourselves that Richard will continue his experience in living. His adventure will continue, albeit on a different plane, and most likely in ways that are not comprehensible to us right now. At our current level of understanding, what we see is grief. However, we can know with certainty that God is always being God, always taking form, always leaving form. This is something that I found this morning. It popped into my inbox. And I'd like to use it to close the service. We're going to try to put together a circle at the end of the service. It might be more than one circle, it might be a circle within a circle, but I'm going to ask you to stand and join hands with the person next to you shortly. So, here's a question for all of us. A series of questions, more accurately. Here we go. What if death were not a thief, but rather a set of wings whose warm feathers could lovingly sweep us into the place where souls find rest? What if death were not a cruel blade cutting our lives from the vine? What if death were a shelter, a place to preserve love, safe from life's storms? What if death were not a matter of decay, but rather a process of shifting energy? What if death were not a matter of decay, but rather a process of shifting energy, a soul's journey from its flesh and bone home to its new address in the embrace of eternity? What if? So I hope that gives us a different way to think about death. We enter life with an inhale, and we exit with an exhale. In between, let's live for the moments that take our breath away. Richard was a wonderful man. Let us each one go out and do likewise. Let's stand and try to join hands. Can you play for us the peace song?
Okay.